Good morning. I'm on a rant this morning, and I've been thinking an awful lot about cancer recently. And it seems that every day that I open the newspaper, somebody has lost their battle with cancer, or somebody is fighting cancer, and because of lack of funds, or the lack of availability of, in this case, this lad is seeking stem cells, somebody's going to die. And I was just thinking about the number of people that I know, just me, who have had cancer, who are actually going through chemo treatment at the minute, or who have actually died. And I was trying to put a number on this. And, you think about your situation. Think of the people, the family, friends you know. Think of your work colleagues. Think of people that you just know as acquaintances, and count up how many have gone through or are suffering from or have died from cancer-related illness. Without even thinking about it, I can count up the numbers. 2 close family friends have died of cancer. 2 work colleagues have died of cancer, so that makes 4. And there's 3 very good friends at the minute who are coming through cancer. 1 nearly died. And on top of that, we know of 5 other acquaintances. Now, I didn't even have to think to come up with those numbers. They immediately pop into your head. And these people have faces, these people have families, and your experience is probably the same as mine. You probably know people who have died of cancer or are going through the trauma of chemo at the minute. And, because cancer in all its forms is so rampant today, you would think that it would be number 1 on the government's priority list to deal with. People are dying, people are in hospital. The NHS has got hospital wards devoted to cancer. And, you would think that it would be the government's top priority to get some sort to fund research, to provide nurses and doctors, new units, new drugs, the best practice to get this terrible set of diseases that makes up cancer, to try and make some real inroads into it and cut down the death rate and give people hope. But is the government really doing this? I don't think so. How often have you heard from successive governments, and we're talking about Labour, we're talking about Lib Dem, we're talking about Tory, how often have you heard from successive governments, we care about the man in the street? My goodness. Well, actions speak louder than words. Let's look at the actions. Successive governments have allowed cancer charities to shoulder most of the costs, or a lot of the costs, down to cancer, whether it's research or cancer care or new drugs or doctors and nurses. this is how much our government cares. Yes, they do pump in the money into the NHS, but it's distributed all over the place. How much of it actually is left to deal with the big C? You know, how much does the government care? Well, let's just look at it. Where is the money going? It's going to something called Trident. And these are the Trident nuclear submarines. And we're looking at this here. And these facts have been produced by the UK's independent fact-checking charity. And I'm reading this and I'm just, this is unbelievable. Replacing the current class of nuclear submarines is expected to cost 31 billion. And this was written in 2016. Another 10 billion has been put aside to cover any extra costs or spending over the estimate. The article goes on to say that money so far is only that's just for new submarines. There are several other costs linked to Trident. Extending the life of the current Trident missile into the early 2060s will cost 250 million more. Keep the current Trident submarines to keep them in operation in 2028, 4 years longer than planned, is also expected to cost between 1.2 and 1.4 billion. And just where else is public money going? Well, public money, our governments, successive governments again, are very, very good at giving away public money to foreign countries in foreign aid. Now, granted, some of this foreign aid reaches the needy, and I have no beef about that. But an awful lot of this money, and it has been proven, an awful lot of this money ends up in the pockets of dictators, despots. An awful lot of this money ends up, not helping the poor and the sick and the famine and the earthquake victim. Here's an example. MPs raised concerns over UK aid funding, Chinese film industry and Chinese museums. And, this is one small example of a misappropriation of funds that, should have been placed at the disposal of our NHS rather than this. And time again, successive governments will say, oh, there's just not enough money in the kitty. And I'm looking across at Germany. Germany is well known for providing the best cancer care in the world. And I'm saying, how can this be? German hospitals, they're providing better cancer care than our NHS. Now, I accept that some of these hospitals are run privately, but Germany is doing it for its people. Why can't we? And my conclusion as regards all of this is that successive governments are great at talking the talk at election time. But after the election disappears and they're in safely for another term, cancer and their promises to the public to make the public's lives better, that just goes down the list of priorities and disappears off the bottom end of it. Well, that's my belief. My belief is that the small man or woman doesn't really count. You got an illness, you got cancer, oh dear. And they might find you a bed in an NHS hospital if you're lucky. but you don't really count. Or by the time they find a bed for you, it's too late. You know, that's just not good enough. And to me, in our society today, there's only a few people who really count. It's the top politicians. And I mean the top ones. The ones full of their own self-importance, they count. They'll get the treatment and all the rest of it. Royalty counts. They'll get the best of treatment. The leaders of multinational industries who have buckets of money, the celebrities who have buckets of money, they'll get the treatment. But the ordinary man in the street, well, if he hasn't got the money, well, that's just too bad. And cancer treatment should not be dependent on the money. It should be there, available for everybody. But it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the money. And it's all about the money in people's pockets and maximising profits. And, you know, the wee man in the street or the wee woman in the street who's dying of cancer, well, that's hard lines. Now, it's a serious rant this morning, and I'm not trying to be frivolous or anything else. This is a big issue. People I know, dear ones, have died. And other ones, 3 very close good friends at the moment, have got cancer. And thankfully all 3 are making headway. But, you know, this big C, this in all the guises that it comes under, it needs to be addressed. It's an epidemic, and our government is sitting on their hands and paying out money to things that are of much lesser importance.